Okay, so I now move on to the year 2013. Now, I should say I'm not using any notes for this. I've got the Wikipedia article in the background, and I'm just going by things that I remember from that year. For half the year, I was actually in China, so I didn't collect as many newspapers as I usually do. Um, anyway, as with the other videos, it's impossible to cover absolutely everything, so feel free to add events, people, relevant details of the year 2013 below the video. So early in the year 2013 saw a big disaster in Brazil. The nightclub fire in the Kiss nightclub, 242 people killed. It was one of the worst nightclub fires ever recorded, and a big national disaster in Brazil. Um, Coming on from 2012, Gangnam Style, which of course had been launched in 2012, was really getting viral by 2013 by the South Korean rapper Psy. So the Gangnam Style craze was sweeping the world by this point, and it made him a household name in the music industry. Another event of 2012 that I overlooked, probably should have mentioned, the shooting of Trayvon Martin, of course, was a big social event in the United States, which provoked serious questions around race relations, gun laws, and a whole range of other factors. Doesn't really need an introduction, it is what it is. But that was 2012, but it was ongoing in 2013. Um, 2013, compared to other years, wasn't that eventful in the UK. In Europe, in other parts of Europe, Germany saw a federal election. Angela Merkel was re-elected to the chancellorship, um, making her the second longest-serving chancellor in modern times after Helmut Kohl. Um, the day began with the year began, I should say, with terrorist atrocities in Pakistan. Over 100 killed, with attacks aimed at Quetta, among other cities. There was also a hostage crisis at a natural gas facility in Menace, Algeria, which gained quite a lot of attention. North Korea, uh, remember that Kim Jong Un had taken over in 2011, um, conducted its third underground nuclear test. On February the 15th, a meteor exploded over the Russian city of Chelyabinsk, injuring up to 1,492 people and damaging over 4,300 buildings. And it's the most powerful meteor, I should say, was to strike the Earth's atmosphere in over a century. And along with a coincidental flyby of a larger asteroid, prompts international concern regarding this planet's vulnerability to asteroid and meteor strikes. One big ceremonial event that took place in the year was the Ascension by Papal Conclave of Pope Francis. And this came, of course, on top of the resignation of Pope Benedict XVI, who was the first pope to do so since 1415, when Gregory the XII resigned from office, and the first to do so voluntarily since Celestine V in 1294. So that was a pretty notable event. Pope Francis quickly established himself on the world stage, made it clear he took a very different style from his predecessor. And there were, of course, a lot of questions over what role his predecessor would take. As we know, he then assumed the title of Pope Emeritus. The Central African Republic crisis broke out when President Francois Bozizé fled to the Democratic Republic of Congo after rebel forces captured the capital of Bangui, which began the Central African Republic Civil War. In the same year, brutal war broke out in the newly formed Republic of South Sudan, a war which would claim many thousands of lives. In Brazil in 2013, the country saw major protests, which have been called, uh, went by several titles, including the June Journeys, the V for Vinegar protests, and these were over a campaign to try and get free public transport, and it exposed a lot of wealth poverty rifts within Brazilian society. These were huge protests, attracting at their peak about 2 million people. The same year, Turkey also saw similar large scale protests over public infrastructure programs. In 2013, the Egyptian political crisis continued, and in August 2013, there were sit-ins in Cairo in favour of the Muslim Brotherhood and in favour of the Islamist President Mohamed Morsi. This culminated in a bloody crackdown known as the Rabaa massacre, in which possibly as many as 800 people were killed. Some sources say over 1,000, officially 632. But whatever way we look at it, a large-scale massacre which remains highly controversial to this day. In 2013, the Syrian war really got bleak. The siege of Aleppo continued, and the infamous Ghouta chemical attack took place, widely blamed on the Syrian regime. But depending on the source, of course, the Syrian war very much became a media war, with Russian state media acting in favour of the Assad regime. China and Russia that year refused to back UN sanctions condemning the Assad regime. Western airstrikes were targeted at the Assad regime. So Syria really became a focal point and really escalated that year. It really became that I would say is the year that Arab Spring became Arab Winter. 2013, Kenya saw a major terrorist attack at the Westgate shopping mall in Nairobi, with 71 people killed by the Islamist group Al Shabaab. Also looking throughout 2013, on June the 6th, the former CIA employee Edward Snowden discloses operations engaged in by US government mass surveillance program to news publications and flees the country, later being granted temporary asylum in Russia. Just looking at other events of the year, Croatia became the 28th member of the European Union. Philippe is sworn in as the King of the Belgians following the abdication of Albert II. And we I should say, regarding the Ghouta chemical attack, the British Parliament voted against British military strikes on Syria. That was at the time Ed Miliband was leading the Labour Party, it should be said. I'm just kind of scrolling through the Wikipedia list, trying to be as widespread as possible. In the Philippines, one of the worst typhoons ever recorded in that country, Typhoon Haiyan, also known as Typhoon Yolanda, hit the Philippines, killing well over 6,000 people. On November the 24th, Iran agreed to limit their nuclear development program in exchange for sanctions relief. In Ukraine, the Euromaidan pro-EU demonstrations began after President Viktor Yanukovych rejects an economic association agreement between the European Union and Ukraine in favour of closer ties to Russia. 51 people were killed when the Tatarstan airline Flight 363 crashed at Kazan airport in Russia. Free Studies of Lucian Freud, a series of portraits of Lucian Freud by the British painter Francis Bacon, sold for $142 million at a New York City auction, setting a world record for an auctioned work of art. And a lot of this, I have to say, I'm just going off the top of my head. Saudi Arabia, and also looking at the Wikipedia list, Saudi Arabia rejected the seat on the UN Security Council, making it the first country to reject the seat on the Security Council. Jordan takes the seat on December the 6th. In Bangladesh, one of the world's worst industrial accidents took place. A garment factory when over 1,000 people were crushed following the collapse of that garment factory. The PlayStation 4 was released the week before the release of Xbox One. And just looking at other events throughout the year, Australian federal elections took place. The Liberal National Coalition led by Tony Abbott defeated the Labour Party led by Prime Minister Kevin Rudd. and Abbott will be sworn in on September the 18th. I'm just looking at anything. I'm reluctant to miss anything out. Um, the European Union agrees for a €10 billion economic bailout for Cyprus. This was on March the 25th. The bailout loan will be equally split between the European Financial Stabilisation Mechanism, the European Financial Stability Facility, and the International Monetary Fund. The deal precipitates a banking crisis on the island nation. Barack Obama took had his second presidential inauguration in January, and yeah, that is the year 2013. I think I've covered most of the big events of that year. No doubt I'll have forgotten something. We could take any one of these years and there would be any number of big events. I don't remember 2013 as being the most eventful year of the 2010s, but no doubt there will be something else. I should say the South Sudan civil war actually broke out on December the 15th when fighting between ethnic Dinka and Nuer members of the Presidential Guard broke out in Juba, South Sudan, and that became one of the deadliest conflicts of the 2010s decade. Two very prominent deaths, so we'll close with this, occurred in the year 2013. Firstly, Margaret Thatcher, the former British Prime Minister, in April, I should say. That led to very mixed feelings in the United Kingdom. There were street parties from many on the hard left who despised Thatcher, whilst many others lauded her premiership and lauded her as an inspirational leader of the 20th century. And she had something next to a state funeral, not a full state funeral, but something next to that. I remember one of my students actually told me about that when it happened. Um, it was the most high profile death of a prime minister since Churchill in this country. And in December, the great South African figure Nelson Mandela passed away. And that's culminated in a state funeral with world leaders in attendance. Barack Obama and several other leaders hit some controversy when they were seen taking selfies, which was seen as a little bit inappropriate. Barack Obama and David Cameron and others. But it was the passing of one of the world's most renowned leaders and a man who had been described as the unofficial president of the world. So that was the sort of a claim that Nelson Mandela was held in. So that was the year 2013. Like I say, anything that I've overlooked, feel free to add to this. I know I'll have overlooked something. Conflicts that were ongoing that year, the Mexico drug war, the Somalian civil war, the Syria war, of course, the South Sudan civil war, the Central African Republic civil war, um, and the Burma crisis as well, the ethnic conflicts going on in Burma. Um, One other big thing of 2013, I should say, Xi Jinping formally took over all the power positions in China. The transition had begun in 2012, but this was really formalized by 2013. Um, so that was the year 2013. Feel free to add any information I may have overlooked, because no doubt I will have. And thanks for watching.